last March. Since last March at the counselors conference. So I'm Peggy Dolan. Said, good to be here with you again. David is the one that is doing the recording. Nancy's in the pretty pink, and Terry's got her beautiful yellow on today.
Hello.
There you go.
Okay.
Thank
And
you.
we know you.
Yeah, here I am. Yeah, here I am.
We so appreciate you coming to meet with us today. We know how busy you are, and we don't have any idea what that means, but we're glad that you could squeeze a few minutes in for us.
Oh,
We appreciate it. Yeah.
no, I'm honored. I really am, as a matter of fact. And I want to say everything to you and to all the teachers. You know, foreign languages and the teaching of foreign languages have always been very important to me. Not many of you would know this, but I grew up in rural Utah. And I'm a devout Mormon, and I spent 3 years on a Mormon mission in Germany. I learned 2 languages, and I still speak them, not as frequently as I like, although I do read both Der Stern, which is the Time magazine of Germany, and Corriere della Sera, which is the major newspaper from Italy, because I learned about halfway through my mission, I was called to learn Italian. So I learned German and I learned Italian. I have to tell a funny story to everyone. I don't want to take a lot of time, but I was not too long ago in Italy, and when I was paying my bill, the woman asked me. She said, "Well, where are you from in Germany?" Because of the fact that
Wow.
I learned Italian from a German teacher who didn't speak any English. So still to this day, I translate from English to German to Italian. And I guess I must have picked up a German accent with it. But anyway, foreign languages are important because of the fact that the world is very small, and we need to learn to value and appreciate other cultures. And I honestly don't think you can really truly understand another culture if you're a tourist. I think you have to really understand the language, and I think you have to understand the values that the language mean. You know, German to me has always been such a precise language, and that kind of gives me a sense of the precision of you know, of German people. On the other hand, you know, Italian is a flowing language. It has all sorts of wonderful intonations to it. And that's just the way the Italian people are. I mean, so language is really reflective of culture. So good for us, right?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
We definitely speak the same language.
Right.
So you were a young man when you started German.
Can I interrupt for a second? I'd like to interrupt for a second, please. If you all could sort of lean back a little bit. By being up so closely, we're getting a little bit of feedback. Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay. All right. We'll try this. So before you went to Germany, Dr.E, you had no experience with language learning?
Well, you know, in high school, I mean, I was in a rural high school, but yeah, I did. I took some languages. I actually learned Latin, and I'm one of the few people in a rural high school. A dead language, not really, but. And funny, because when I became the president of Brown, one of the requirements for being the president of Brown was to give at least part of my commencement speeches in Latin.
Wow.
And so you think about that. That was a learning moment. Yeah, no, I've always been interested in language, but as you know, I mean, growing up in my culture, which has a very strong international component to it and an educational component to it. Language and the learning of language is always very important. The high schools in my part of the world, in Utah, always had very strong language programs and teaching programs for languages.
That's very interesting. That would be nice for other high schools to have that mindset of the importance of languages. What about when you were in Germany? Were there any did you do classes while in Germany, or was it
No.
all just,
I learned it through the assimilation process. I mean, I did study before
Okay.
I went, but first of all, you had a companion. There were always two of us. You've seen
partner?
these young Mormon missionaries. My first companion was German. Didn't speak one word of English, and so I either was going to starve to death or learn the and it was a great way. I mean, it was really an assimilation, and we lived above a Metzgerei, above a butcher shop, and I learned a lot of language there. I probably shouldn't have learned, but the rule was, at least in with our particular structure, that we would not speak English
Mhm.
even to English speakers, and that we'd always speak. So I spent 3 years really only speaking a foreign language, and it was a wonderful. I mean, I really, and as I say to this day, I can still speak fluently. I shouldn't probably. I want to be appropriately humble about that, but I still have a good fluidity of language.
Right. You get your message across,
Yeah.
and you're trying, it opens up people's to you
Yeah.
as well. So I would imagine that your first motivation was the completion of your mission.
Yes.
But did you notice that over time your motivation or your reasons for being there changed as you got more fluent in the language and
Well,
had-
I think my understanding and my ability to really value friendships. There's nothing like speaking the language of the people that you're involved with to really create a deeper understanding, but also a deeper sense of friendship and a deeper understanding. I mean, I really, and I can't emphasize this enough. I think that language is a reflection of culture.
Mhm.
And the best way to really deeply understand a culture is to be able to speak that language in some form. Or one of the reasons, for example, that I encourage our own students and always have to have some sort of a foreign, a study abroad, foreign experience, even if it's just a week or whatever. I'm privileged because of the work that I've been in for now 41 years, university president. I mean, I have traveled the world, and I know that, for example, when I'm in the Far East, because I don't speak Chinese or Korean or Japanese, that I feel a little bit at sea, and that makes me feel awkward. Yesterday, I was on a telephone call with the board of the Royal University for Women, and which is in Bahrain, and they conduct their meetings in English, but one of the board members, who is actually a member of the royal family, didn't speak English. So when she was speaking in Arabic, and I just felt like, I just felt totally out to sea. So someone had to interpret for me later on. So it's all of that. It's all of that kind of feeling of connectiveness and of community, which I think language is really so important in developing with, and particularly with our young people.
Would you, I mean, I absolutely agree with you that friendship and the sense of, connection and community are two of our, what would you call them? Our standards for learning language. So, we're on the same page, obviously. Could you speak to the immersion experience, being in Germany, needing German to survive, I'm sure it
was
experience.
It was a wonderful way to. It was also a little frightening, but it was a wonderful way to learn the language. And I did. I mean, it was really total immersion. at the language training centers that the LDS Church has now developed, it's a total immersion concept. And as you know, they probably have the finest language teaching programs in the country.
Oh, I'm sure. Yes.
Out of Salt Lake City and out of Provo. And if you go to, I taught at BYU for about 4 years, and you know, there were so many different languages being thrown around all the time, even in law school where I taught. It's just that people are used to it. Now, of course, you know, at West Virginia University, we're a very international institution. We have students from 55 counties in West Virginia, from 50 states and 120 countries, and we speak 100 different languages here. And so one can come to West Virginia University and really get a immersion experience. You know, I frequently will go to the celebration of Chinese New Year, or to the Saudi National Day, and you know, you really can get a great feeling for a people and a culture just by having those kind of experiences.
Oh, absolutely.
On the university campus in West Virginia.
That's wonderful. Obviously, you support study abroad programs.
I do. I think that and as I say, I think that there are different kinds of them. I think that the old tradition, you go for a semester and go shopping. I don't necessarily support that. I want to make sure that students have a really true, committed kind of an experience, and we try to come up with all sorts of different variations. Sometimes it's that we take students on a medical field trip for a week or 2 weeks to Guatemala or to South America somewhere, and they have that kind of an experience culturally and language wise also. So I mean, so the world is much different when you can experience something, but it doesn't need to be in this kind of rigid semester abroad kind of things that we used to be able to do, that we used to really do.
So like a service related experience is valued, if not.
Oh, absolutely. And I think in many times that's one of the best ways to learn about a culture and about a language is doing it.
Purpose, sense of purpose. Okay.
Yeah.
I liked what you said to Peggy. You were communicating before, and you said learning language had such a tremendous impact on you as far as the culture, but also thinking outside of our own time zone. That is just so, I know, just so succinct. So we're going to use that quote, if you don't mind. So how has well, you've already answered this a bit. We know that you're using language to this day. How does it reflect on a daily basis in your interactions with people, either the languages that you speak or just the fact that you learned language through that immersion? That process of learning language certainly must have affected your tolerance level or your openness to other people.
I think that you know, I'll come back to what I said earlier. I think it is sort of a golden circle. You learn the language, then you understand the culture better. You're more tolerant, you're more interested, you're more interesting as an individual. I think all of those are the type of experience that come from language learning, from the immersion experience, from traveling, a variety of other things. So I think that it's impactful when you hear someone speak to you in a language that you understand, and you understand the sort of nuance that they have. You know, I was just thinking in terms of our conversation. One of my favorite words in German is the word Schlagsahne, which is whipped cream. And I mean, the German language to me has such definitive way, you know, Schlagsahne, you know, yeah, you're going to get whipped cream. And you know, and you never you just learn to think outside yourself, and that's what I think is important.
Yeah, think outside yourself. That's very good. So you also touched on this in your professional life. This experience of knowing language or learning language has had an effect on you
Carrie, excuse me, step back, please. I think
as
we're all been into social distancing for so long that we want to be up close and.
okay. So as in your professional careers plural, as a lawyer, as a professor, and now as a university president, how has that experience benefited?
Well, I mean, obviously, I think it has given me the ability to be able to. First of all, let me just come back and say I've traveled the world, and just some facility with language has always made it more comfortable and agile to be able to travel. As I say, it's much better to travel in the Far East, where I spend a lot of time, and in the Middle East, a lot of time right now, when I don't quite understand the language. I'll say that one of the things that we all know is that English is really universal language. There are very few places you can go. You know, you can go to a small town in the Netherlands, and everyone speaks English better than you do. I mean,
Exactly.
it's quite remarkable. And you know, and in France, if you try to speak French to them, I do not speak French. My daughter does, and she would tell me, you know, they were always so. They always were trying to speak English to her because they would, you know, I guess it was because of the fact that they didn't think our French was very good or something like that. But nonetheless, you know, there's so many variations on the reason that languages open up windows and doors that otherwise would not be open to you as an individual.
Mm-hmm. I definitely agree with that. Windows opens windows, doors, and even though they want to practice English as much as you want to practice French or whatever, I think they appreciate the fact that you're trying to use their language, and that just makes your connection more.
Well, more engaged, I think.
More engaged.
And, again, you get variations. You know, some cultures, places they really appreciate you trying to speak their language. Others get really irritated that you're trying to speak their language. You know, it's kind of reflective of the national norm. I mean, I won't name names, but we all know that there are some that are much more tolerant of people trying to come in and speak their language or trying to learn their language in some way.
Mm-hmm. So at the university level, when you go out to the Saudi day or all the different activities that these different groups hold, I'm sure that your speaking to the students is going to make them have a stronger connection to you. And the fact that you want to use their language is going to make them feel appreciated.
Well, I think that the role of university president is to engage and to be very involved with the university family, however that's possible. And certainly when you go and be part of a university event in which it's really featuring the Saudi students, Kuwaiti students. The reason I'm saying that is that I've been to several of these things recently. You know, I ran into a whole gaggle of students the other evening from Spain, and we had a wonderful time just talking about how they enjoyed the university and so forth. But yeah, I mean, it makes it a very pleasant way to travel the world by just walking our campus.
Oh, that's neat. That's neat. Yeah. So if I think we were we ask everyone who's part of this project that we're doing to give us their personal statement on what they see as the relevance of learning a language. Because as you've said, most of the world is aware of how important language is, and they've learned English from a very young age. But what would be the relevance for United
Well-
States young people to learn a language?
Well, I think that I think that the relevance of learning language is first of all is learning itself. I think that it stretches the mind, stretches it stretches your capacity to think differently. I think that learning a language is to me at least. Let me just talk about myself personally. Has always been something that I've fallen back. It's been a way for me to think about the world as I have seen it through different cultures and different eyes, and where I've been able, particularly in German or Italian, to be able to really kind of understand it from the inside out rather than from the outside moving in.
Oh,
And I like the and I think for our students, I mean, foreign language is not for everyone. I'm not certain that I am a great believer in forcing people to learn a language. I think that what we have to do is we have to convince people that learning a language is
exactly.
is a way to develop a worldview. Unfortunately, sometimes what we've done in universities is we have said, well, you have to have 2 years of X, Y, or Z. Well, I think that sometimes we really create a counter cultural response
Yes,
to that.
we do.
It, they don't, but they don't appreciate it, and sometimes they become
Right.
very irritated. So I think that what we all need to do is we need to talk about the reason for learning a language is not to force someone to do it, but rather that there are absolutely critical reasons that if you really want to become a fulfilled person, to do it. And so we need to appeal to the fulfilling side, and to the intellectual stimulation, and to the cultural growth, and to the cultural competencies of people, rather than forcing people to do something. It's the same argument I guess we could make, and I don't want to. This is an odd argument, but we have not mandated that people get vaccines at the university. Well, guess what? We're up to close to 90% of everyone. In fact, for over 90% of everyone getting vaccines, mainly because of the fact that we did a great job of convincing people that it was in their best interest to do it. I think if I would have created a mandate, I would have had hand-to-hand combat, and a lot fewer people would have been mandated or would have been vaccinated. That's just the way they did. And that's a very awkward way of saying that. I think that one of the issues for language programs, such as the ones that we're all talking about here, is that everyone needs to do a much better job, teachers and others, of spending time convincing people why it's important to do it,
Mhm.
trying to force people to do it. And
Amen.
And that to me, I think, is the new learning.
So as to keep everyone on schedule today, because we don't want to infringe upon your time anymore, Dr.E. We have run out of time here, but I am
Yes.
Actually, Nancy has one question she'd like.
I do.
Thank you, Dr.
Dr.E. Nancy Ryan here, Morgantown native, graduate 77 and 80. I spent 3 summers on study abroad programs with the World Language Department, and I'm a much better person because of those experiences. And we have a vision to put together a public service announcement about benefits of world language study. We would like to know, when this comes to fruition, would you be willing to do one of our little
Sure.
presentations?
Absolutely. I'd be delighted to do that. I'd be honored to do it.
That would be wonderful. And just as an aside, it came to me this morning. Do you have any other suggestions, any other names of people that we might contact who would be recognizable West Virginians or help us for the cause?
Who speak a foreign language themselves or have studied. I think that would be probably critical.
Uh-huh.
Let me think about that. I can send Peggy a note, but
Oh, that would be awesome.
I'm
Thank you
trying
so
to think.
much.
My predecessor, David Hardesty, who is very interested in all these. I'm not certain that David studied foreign language, but he certainly is very committed to the study of languages. He would be another good one, I think, to think about.
Okay, great.
And I want to add, if I can, I have had several nieces go through those programs, the missions, the study abroad programs, and they just come back and that's all they want to do is tell me about it, because I have the connection with other cultures. Even like when Emma went to China, she did some study in China. She wanted to share that with me because it was a foreign culture that she could engage with. And she wanted to share that with me. And then speaking of engaging, you said your role as a president is to engage. I don't know anybody who does it better than you. You get out there and make yourself accessible to everybody. You're in with the freshmen when they come in. You go to the games, you talk to them at tailgates. You are quite impressive.
Well, thank you, Peggy. I appreciate that. But let me tell you something. Being a university president is a gift every day. It's like I'm exposed to all these very bright people. I get a chance to ask people who are doing world-class things why they're doing it, why they're doing it right.
Which I just saw that promotional video, by the way.
Yeah.
But that, reasons to go to WVU and what people found when they got there. It was so well done.
Yeah. Well, thank
Yeah.
you. It is. Yeah. Well, I know I have to run. I will tell you one quick story just for your thing. So a great friend of mine is a guy by the name of John Huntsman, who was the ambassador to both. He was the ambassador to China, and he was the ambassador to Russia. And when I was in China, I actually know him very well. I actually stayed at the embassy with him a couple of times when I was there. And but I met the Minister of Education for China and had this long discussion with him, very Chinese, where they all sit around, smoke, and do a variety of other things. And the guy was asking me all these questions through an interpreter. And then at the end of the time, he came up to me and in perfect Oxford English and said, "Oh, gee, it was wonderful to be with you." I mean, he knew everything that I was saying. He'd obviously been trained, but he made a point. He said, the reason that John Huntsman is probably the best ambassador that the United States has ever had is he speaks our language better than we do. And John Huntsman spoke both Cantonese and Mandarin, and
Wow.
he learned that on his Mormon mission. But so you think about that. I've always been struck by that as kind of a telling point. Anyway, it's wonderful to be with all of you. Let me know what I can do to help. And I really enjoyed the conversation. And Peggy, it's great to see you again. Nancy, wonderful to see you. David, have you and I met, haven't we? Have we met? I'm trying to think about that. Where do you live, David?
We live in Marietta,
Okay,
Ohio.
live in Marietta, Ohio, but taught in West Virginia for for 30 years. West Virginia is in my heart, obviously.
You're a buccaneer. You're
Okay.
a buccaneer mountaineer.
Yeah.
Buccaneer, exactly.
There you go. Great.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Everyone have
Thank you.
a great day. Okay. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye now.
Let me,
Good job.